Everything homemade. Hey everyone, it's Rita with Everything Homemade, and look at those lettuce plants. Aren't they beautiful? So I just want to say that this series is sponsored by Bloom Plus, and they have sent me this wonderful grow light up here to put it to the test. Now this is a BP 1000, and I am definitely putting it to the test. Beautiful lettuce plants, absolutely beautiful. The next thing is that I am diving into hydroponics, and I will get to this a little bit later. And so I have all these plants growing in a 2-foot radius around this grow light, and it is working phenomenal. So I am definitely putting this grow light to the test and using every little bit of light out of it as I can. So stay tuned and I will explain exactly what we're doing today. Hey everyone, it's Rita with Everything Homemade, and this is going to be a really exciting episode because I'm going to show you what I have been experimenting with hydroponics. Plus we're going to start to fertilize the lettuce plants to see which one works better, the goose / duck manure tea over a store-bought fertilizer, or will the results be the same? I guess we'll find out. Then we're going to move in. We're going to set the rabbit manure tea. We're going to do the compost manure tea. We're going to show you my awesome little starting plants here for the hydroponics, and we're going to go into experimentation on which homemade fertilizer works. One of the biggest costs with hydroponics is the fertilizer. You can spend hundreds of dollars on hydroponic equipment and plant food. So I wanted to cut this down to $50 to get started, or less. And I think I found a solution, as some things are working wonderful. And I wanted to use what I had on the farm because no one has documented research, except none of it, Canada, that goose poo actually works as a manure through hydroponics. I can find an article, they've used it in their greenhouses, but I can't find proportions. So I'm going to do a complete experiment on that because I want to do hydroponics with the fertilizer I have right here on the farm. But I am going to use a bought-in fertilizer to show you how to do hydroponics with that. So I'm going to cover all bases and just play with it and have lots of fun. At the same time, figure out something really practical. So let's dive into this. Let's take a look at what we got happening here. Lots of things happening. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I am going to get the manure teas ready, because I can do that quite fast. Now I showed you last episode how to do the duck manure. And in this episode, I'm going to show you rabbit. Now, rabbit is supposed to be one of the best manures in considering to feed your plants. It's just like duck. You can use it straight into plants without burning the roots. So duck, or I would say waterfowl, and rabbit are your two best choices. Now this comes from my rabbit here, my little blackberry, my pal inside. And so I'm just gonna wrap up these pellets just like I did with the duck. I simply take an elastic, and again I'm just using a cheesecloth. Now, and I'm just going to go like that, and I'm going to drop it into a gallon of water. Okay, so take a look at that. So right down here I have a container with an R on it because R is for rabbit. I'm going to drop this right into the water. I'm going to hold it down a little bit there so it becomes weighted. There we go. and I'm just going to let that do its magic. I'm going to seal this up tight. There we go, and I'm going to just move it out of my way. Now comes to this bucket right here. This is C for compost. Now we just moved a whole bunch of compost to the garden, so let's get back up here. But I took some of the compost into two 5-gallon pails to play with it. Okay, so I'm just going to take some of this and put it in the garbage. Okay, off to another cheesecloth, and now I'm going to put some freshly made compost into this cheesecloth. So take a look at this. This used to be just a whole bunch of poo, straw, chicken manure. It used to look gross, hey Ocean?
Oh yeah. Ugh.
This is actually dirt. Can you see that clearly? This is homemade dirt. Like, I just find it so incredible to look at because we made this dirt. The compost pile, we put everything in the compost pile. The organisms, I should say, made the dirt, but this is so cool to see. Okay, so I'm going to, again, simply wrap this up. Twist it. Where did my elastic go? Oh, and then put the elastic on. Okay, and then we're going to drop in the bucket. Now I didn't fill this bucket all the way full because it's a little bigger than the other bucket, but I wanted it the same amount of water, so I'm going to drop it in. You can see that there's some fine particles. We may actually have to sift this water out after a little finer, but I'll deal with that later. So I'm just going to let it sit there. Secure the bucket once again. Okay, off to the next set. Okay, up here again, this is our goose poo. This has been sitting now for 5 days. Now, I'm going to open this up and let's take a look. Okay, definitely smells a bit ducky because of the poo, and it's been sealed. So it's going to have a little bit more odor. But you can see how dirty it looks, the water, and I mean that's typical for ducks. That's what they swim in all the time. So that's a really good thing. Okay, it kind of smells, hey Ocean?
Yeah.
That's because it's been sealed. So we're having an anaerobic effect. We just learned that in science, didn't we? No oxygen getting to things creates that smell to it. If this was out in the open, it wouldn't have that smell because I had the lid on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this outside and basically dump into the compost pile and then rinse this outside with a hose and basically wash it up. But this here has as much nutrients as it's going to pull out now. But for what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take 1 cup of this, and now you can really see how cloudy it is, and I'm going to put it and dilute it into my gallon. Now what I've been reading is most people use compost tea, and even I do, when it is a light tea looking, so like a weak tea. Okay, so this is fairly weak, and I think it's a little too weak, so I'm looking at color here, and I'm measuring how much I'm putting in. So this here, I'm putting another 2/3 of a cup. And I think I like that color. So this is a weak tea. I put 1 cup and 2/3 into my gallon. I'm just going to close this up right now. I will deal with the manure in there. I'm going to take it out after here. But for right now, what I'm going to do is put the lid on here, and I'm going to shake this just to mix it up. Okay, so there it is diluted. You don't want to use the full strength because that is really strong. You want to always dilute things. Okay, so I'm going to just remove my gloves here. So now we have the Goose Manure Tea. I have a store-bought kind of a plant starter nutrient mix. I also have here another store-bought flowering mix. Now, they're from these right here. Oops, sorry. They're from these ones right here. So this is Plant Prod Ultimate. This is the flowering plant fertilizer, and to dilute it I used 1 tablespoon per gallon, and this one here is the Plant Starter Boost, same brand, and it was a tablespoon and a half per gallon, and all the instructions are on the back of these of whatever you buy. So I'm going to put the starter one down because I'm not going to use that one quite yet. We're not ready for that. But I'm going to compare these two right here. The Goose and the flowering formula. So let's go water our lettuce plants. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is I am going to add in about 2 cups of water. My lettuce plants are fairly dry. I purposely did that. So I'm going to put some water in here. And this is the flowering fertilizer that I'm using. Now, Ocean, you tell me, which one should I do the store-bought fertilizer? What?
This one.
That one right there? Okay, so here it goes, Ocean. So I'm going to just very gently water these plants in. I will need to be careful, otherwise the weight of the water will push the plants down. I'm going to give them a really good watering. Now, when you're doing stuff like this, you want to look for good signs. You want to look for good green growth. You want to look for, make sure there's no yellow leaves coming, because if you got yellow leaves, that's a sign of suffering or a sign of toxicity. You also want to make sure that you don't have your leaves too dark green. Some people think, oh, my plant's perfect, it's got such dark leaves. It actually can be an overload, where your plant's telling you that things aren't doing so well. So I basically have put about 2 cups in here, and that is soaked. So I'm going to leave my lettuce plants like that. I have extra in my watering can, so I'm just going to pour it back in here. There we go. Now it's time for the Goose mixture. And after the Goose one, I'll just rinse my watering can out really quickly. So off to this one here. Now I have watered my pepper plants with Goose manure, full strength, from like a pond my ducks were swimming in, and I had the most beautiful peppers. Now this is diluted, so because these are lettuce plants, they're not pepper plants, they're not producing fruit in that way, but I'm confident that you won't kill anything using it because I have used it all over the garden. There we go. Because I do a weekly video, we're going to monitor how the plants look. Remember, they were started at the exact same time, the exact same seed, in the exact same soil. So the only variable is the fertilizer that we are using. Okay, so let's go with the hydroponics, and I'm going to show you what I've been doing, which is really cool. I have never done hydroponics before. And so there's a lot of information out there on YouTube, on Google. There are so many different ways to do it that I have decided to kind of put some methods together and to see what works. Okay, so this is my little floating seeds. And basically this is sponge So take a look over here. I bought this pack for $1.25. This is Canadian, so dirt cheap at my Dollarama. And I am using just your normal cleaning sponges, okay? And I cut them up. So let's take a look at this guy right here. And it's in a container with just water. There's no fertilizer in it. There's nothing like that, okay? Just plain filtered water. So this is the sponges here, and this seed here has been just placed on as the roots grew. And this one here, I've actually cut in the middle and placed the root inside. So the plant now is actually growing in the middle of the sponge. And as you can see here, they're just floating on water. But now is the time to get them some nutrients. And this one here is in that starter nutrients, that store-bought starter nutrients, and it is in here. And the same thing, I had planted it into the middle, and now it's floating in water, and now it has a green top to it. So, and it's underneath the grow light too. And so this is really cool because sponges are cheap. What I want to know is that the ones that I did in the middle and cut open the middle, I'm hoping to reuse the sponges over and over again. So let's actually plant a few of the sponges. What you see here is a mechanism used for growing sprouts. So if you take a look in here, you can see some little lettuce sprouts right here and right here that have the root starting to come. And what I'm doing is I am sprouting in here my lettuce seeds before they go in the hydroponic system. So this is a really cool system. Now what it does is that you can take the bottom tray out here, and basically you take it and you spill all that water at the top, and it drips down all the way through, watering all your seeds, and then it catches at the bottom. I've had this for years for sprouting, but I'm now just using it for hydroponics, so I don't have to use any paper towel. And this was like 20 bucks, which I already had. So you have to sprout your seeds, and you can do this on a paper towel. You can do this just by adding water to a container and then draining off the water. You just need them to get those little roots. Then the next step you want to do, how I'm doing it, is I take my sponge and I basically am cutting it in half. Just like that. And I'm just making little squares out of it. You know what, I'm not measuring perfectly. It doesn't need to be perfect. You're just making some squares. What I'm aiming at is using a net cup. Now I did purchase these net cups. They're like 30 to 50 cents. You use them over and over. This is a 3-inch net cup. What I want to do is be able to put them in there with my plant, and I will go over that, but that's kind of what I'm aiming at. Okay. So what I find is that cutting them like this works the best. I'm getting the best results. So that's what technique I'm going to continue to do with. A couple of my seeds died just being on top going in, while some lived, but I'm having 100% success rate when I just make that hole right there in the middle like that. Which kind of looks like this, you know, has 2 legs or maybe a mouth. Whatever. Anyway, what I want to do is just make my sponge wet, so I'm just going to soak it into the water here, just like that. I'm just going to use the lid to my sprouter as my base, and then what I'm going to do is grab one of my seeds, and I'm just using tweezers here because it's simpler to grab. Just like that. And now you can see you see that little root right there? Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I take my seed that just got stuck to my tweezer. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to reposition my seed, and I want the root down, and I want it right on top. And you can see what happened here. That's the case where the seed was in, and that's where it's going to sprout. So you haven't actually killed your plant. You just took that rough outside off, and that's actually the leaf part right there, so no big deal. So I'm going to put this into the water, and let's do that one more time. So again, you take your sponge, like that. You put it in the water, get it wet. And when they haven't opened up their leaves, they don't really need any nutrients yet given into the water. It's when they want to start creating their leaves. So let's find another sprout here. And here's a good one. I'm looking for a little, like, that has a really good root on it. I guess when I say sprout is I'm meaning the root to it. And so I'm gonna just nicely get it in there. Like that opening was, it'll be like it was buried in the ground. There we go. And then encapsulate it around. So the tweezers work awesome for that. So I'm going to put that one into the floating water, and I put it in the water because guess what happens? Sponge holds water and moisture. So the next step that I want to do with some of my older ones that I did about 4 or 5 days ago, they're ready for nutrients. So for example, like this one here, you can see how much it has grown. And it's, what I need to do is just take off that top there because it's actually getting trapped in its seed. And I find plants do that, and I had showed you before. Now hopefully I can gently take this off. If not, I need my pins and needles, and I will because it's on there too tight. So you take some pins and needles and you pop off that top. But anyway, right now it needs some nutrients to open up and get out of that shell, or I need to help it. The other thing, you can see this one here is starting to grow too really well. This one here actually grew into the sponge. I didn't open this one up, so I'm going to put 2 of those in there. And let's do a third one, because when I experiment, I like to experiment with a whole different kind, with 3 or 4 different plants, because maybe one will pass away but the other ones will do well. So there's 3 plants in there, and I am going to put this starter right over here. This is the store-bought starter mix, so I'm going to put some in there because now I want the sponge to soak up some nutrients so it will grow. So I'm going to do that just like that. And then whenever you're doing experiments, you want to label because you'll never remember. So I'm just going to label this with painter's tape. I'm just going to put S because I put a starter mix in there, and that tells me in my head that it is the store-bought stuff. Okay, so in this one here, I'm going to grab 3 plants again. 3 nice healthy lettuce plants. These are all the same kind. These ones here in the seeds. Again, some are in the seeds. Like this actually grew into the sponge. These 2, whoops. Come on, baby, right there. These 2, and then I'm going to grab one that I opened up and put in there. And you can see in this one here, take a look, you see how brown that root is? I actually have one that is not going to make it. But that's 1 out of 10. So that's pretty good. So this one here, I'm going to put the goose poo. Now with the goose poo, I gotta watch my plants because I don't have a, like, 1 cup to this amount will work. I don't know. I am just playing a guessing game. I'm gonna watch how the plant grows to see how much nutrients I actually need to add in here. I know it's potent stuff, so I'm gonna start small and then add if I need to. So right now, this one here has goose. So what I'm gonna do this week, or even tomorrow morning, I'm going to do the same for the rabbit, and I'm going to do the same for the compost. I'm going to put 3 plants into each. Now, the other thing that's really cool to check is the pH, because different manures have different pHs. So let's do a quick pH test. So I have just some lipness paper here, and let's check for pH. Now for good growth, I want my pH to be no lower than I would say no lower than 5.5, no higher than 7. So I'm looking for 5.5 to 7. So let's do the store-bought test here and see what we come up with. So I'm going to put that one right there. And now I'm going to do the goose manure test to see how we are with the pH on the pH scale. I don't know if you guys can see that. Okay, maybe I'll hold it in my hand here. Okay, so there's the colors. So let's go with the color coding here. Okay, so the goose poo is actually at neutral, isn't it, Ocean?
Yep.
You can see the color there. And the store-bought fertilizer, I would say, is at a 6. Right here. I would say it's between, yeah, a 6. Okay, so we definitely have a different pH level, which is very interesting, isn't it?
Yes.
So I would say the goose is at a 7 and the store-bought is at a 6. So that could be a major indicator when growing. I guess we'll just find out, won't we? So that is really interesting to note, is the pH. Okay, but we're in a safe pH on both of them. Will the one point matter? I guess we'll find out, won't we? Okay, so this is the next day. So we are about 12 hours since I filmed the last time when we put the sponges right here in the different solutions. So this was the store-bought fertilizer. This was the goose poo fertilizer. And they're doing great. So the first thing that I'm going to do this morning is grab one of my containers. And remember I told you that there's these little seed heads stuck on there? Well, I got my trusty tools here this morning, and they're my pins. And I'm going to do this first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab one of my sponges, and I'm going to just place it on top. This is just a yogurt lid so I don't drip everywhere. And what I'm going to do is I sprayed the top. So all I did was I took a spray bottle and just sprayed the top to moisten the seed head. And then I take a little pin. Nova, can you see all this really well? I take a pin and I just gently take it off, just like that. See how easy that was to free them? And then I'm going to do it again. And this one here actually grew into the sponge already, which is fantastic. And I'm just once again going to take that little seed head off. And you kind of got to figure out for each one is a little different. Kind of got to get underneath here. And this is when I need my tweezers, because I can get a little bit of the seed and I can peel it up. There's another piece. And hopefully I can get this. And there you go. That should be good enough for him to free himself. Okay, now that we got the seed heads off of our plants, I'm gonna open up this bucket we did yesterday with the rabbit poo that we put into this bucket. And you can see how nice and brown that is. Again, I got my gallon jug here, and I'm going to put, first I'm going to start with a cup. You see how brown that looks, and it looks really, really good when you're talking about manure tea. And now I'm going to pour it into here. So I'm looking for the same shade of brown as the other one. I put 1 2/3 cup. So I'm just going to do the exact same thing with this one here. That looks great. Give it a little shake. And this one here is done. Again, I will remove the rabbit poo out of here after, but that one is done. So I'm just going to put that off to the side. And now I'm going to do the manure tea one. So it looks like everything's settled to the bottom. We have clean water on top, and then all the nutrients is at the bottom. So I'm just going to give this a little shake. Just like that. And again, I'm going to put it into another container. And I'm looking for the shade, and that looks not too bad. This one's smaller, this container, because I only have a half a gallon, so I'm not going to put it as much in it because obviously it's in half. So let's get the lid put back on this one. And out of all the 3 different kinds of manure teas I got going here, the duck and goose smell the worst. The rabbit and the other manure actually have very little smell to it. Okay, I got my 2 containers here. I have one labeled for rabbit, one labeled for the manure tea. I'm going to put some water, manure water, into this one. And rabbit into this one. There we go. And now what I'm going to do is I have some more seedlings here that I'm going to take over here from my transfer container, and this is just water that they were in. So now I'm just going to put my sponges into the nutrient solution, and I'm doing 3 per each. And into this one. Move over, dude. Squish in there. Okay, there we go. Okay, so what do I got here? I got all the solutions underneath the grow light, beside the lettuce, and you can take a look at the lettuce here. Remember, we watered them yesterday, and no difference. They both look really, really solid and good so far. So I'm really impressed with that. And the last thing we need to do, let's do that pH test once again, and then we're going to leave them like this for a week. So we did a pH on the duck, and the duck was 7, and the store-bought was 6. So let's do it on, where's my rabbit? There you go. On the rabbit. I'm just going to put the paper right there for the moment. And then let's do it on the manure tea. Let's see what happens for a moment. I'm just going to wipe my surface here clean so I can see it against a white surface. Here's my indicator with colors. So let's just grab this one here for a moment. So I would say we are around that neutral mark as well. With the rabbit, I would say we're close to 7. And then with the Manure Tea, we're a little bit on the green side, so I would say we're between that 7 and that 8. It's kind of a little bit hard to tell, but we're definitely within that neutral mark to a little bit basic. So I would say the most acidic solution that I got here would be the store-bought. Now we'll see if that makes any difference, but we're definitely not running high acidity, which is really cool. I definitely didn't want really high acidity. Now the question is it too basic or alkaline? We'll see. We'll see what happens with the plants and how they grow. Okay, so that is everything for this video. I want to just say once again thank you to Bloom Plus for giving me the opportunity to test out their grow lights, for even for the ability to do this experiment with hydroponics, with growing lettuce in the house. Thank you so much. If you're interested in any of the products, all the links are in the description box below. Check them out. Again, it's a BP 1000 that I am using, and it is the best grow light I have ever used. I am so thoroughly impressed. Just the results alone from the lettuce over here tells you exactly how well this grow light is doing. The fact that I got lettuce here, I've got more plants growing here, this whole section of the table here has a grow light in the middle, and it's a 4 foot by 3 foot section of my table here, and it is doing phenomenal under this grow light. So very impressed. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.